Hey there. I think it's time for another leader lesson. And this lesson this week, I promise, can be so impactful in both your personal and professional life. It's all about taking wise risks. I've been talking about taking risks for a long time. There was literally a whole section in my first book called Leader by Mistake, Becoming a Leader One Mistake at a Time, released back in 2017, all about taking wise risks. Because our opportunity to take wise risks and our opportunity to reap the benefits of the risks that we've taken, they show up in such meaningful ways. But I know when we talk about taking risks, a lot of people's minds go all over the place and you start thinking about throwing it all on black, right? Totally quitting your job, right? Totally saying, screw this doesn't even work anymore. When that's not what I'm asking you to do at all, when we're thinking about taking wise risks. That's the reason why the word wise is up in there. I want you to think about how can you give yourself permission to step a little bit more into the discomfort that might be showing up in your personal and professional life so that you can build up this muscle of understanding, okay, risks can be beneficial to me. And by stepping outside my normal or default rivers of thinking, I can open myself up to new opportunities. But sometimes there's a little bit of friction there and wait, I want to try this, but I'm over here. So how do I actually creep a little bit more over there without passing out, falling out, sweating to death? Okay. Ironically, I just finished recording a dynamic podcast episode with a chef. We'll release the episode in just a couple of weeks, and I'm excited to share it with you. We were talking about the whole concept of taking risks and how in the chef world, it's really important because you want to make sure that you have more creative and innovative menus and food options. And that's where I want you to be directed first. Many of us consume lots of food all the time, but many of us also are eating the same things over and over and over again. Whereas we're deep in the month of June, we've been talking about expansive thinking, giving yourself permission to think for solutions or think or ideas or concepts or opportunities outside of your normal mode of thinking. And you embracing this concept of, hey, I can try other foods is probably the simplest way for you to start taking some risks. Because many of us have foods that we enjoy, foods that we know how to cook well, foods that we go back to time and time again. But one of the best ways to start to be a little bit riskier, of course, taking wise risks, is by introducing new foods into your whole stream of eating, right? Just a simple, wise risk that gets you uncomfortable, gets you a little bit out of the space of comfort or that default space that you're always in, for you to get a little bit more comfortable with taking wise risks. The second thing I want to direct you to, right, in your next week of accepting this challenge of taking wise risks is to lean a little bit into the discomfort. I talk about discomfort, I talk about anxiety, I'll talk about self-doubt and all those things on our leadership journey. And I'll continue to talk about them more and more and more in our future because they're things that come up, especially when I'm asking you to take a risk, a wise risk. And here's what I want you to know. There is often a level of discomfort when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, trying a new food, raising your hand and speaking up in a meeting, pushing back on something that you know doesn't make sense, doesn't serve you, doesn't serve anybody, right? There's some discomfort in that. But I want to assure you that once you give yourself permission to be uncomfortable and you return to that situation in the future, it still might be uncomfortable, but it's not as uncomfortable. The risk that I took 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago in my business and even personally, it's not nearly as uncomfortable when I approach that same scenario again. But of course, you got to give yourself permission to get started down the journey. And first, number one, believing that you can take wise risks, but also embracing the comfort along the way. So here's the deal for your leader lesson this week. Number one, I want you to embrace the opportunities around taking wise risks. A physical thing that you can actually go and do, right, and get started on is to start to consume just a different food item, a different beverage option. If you're like, okay, let me try something else, maybe you take a different route home, right? Just get outside of your normal rivers of thinking. And the second thing I want you to do that's more of an internal thing, right, is to lean a little bit more into the discomfort so that the next time that you encounter that situation, it's easier to handle, right? You have built up a risk tolerance for it. And who knows what else you might give yourself permission to take a risk on or get started on, right? I want you to believe that despite your role, position, status, or title, that you're a leader today. You don't need permission for that. I want you to take this lesson and give yourself permission to elevate to your next level of leadership, whatever that is. You know the deal. I'll see you again for another leader lesson next week. Take care of yourself. Ciao.